Hi students, welcome back to English class. First of all, let me thank and congratulate you for attending yesterday's class carefully, doing the homework and submitting the correct answers on time. Hope you enjoyed the movies. Today, I will read the text for you and explain the story part by part. Textbook, page number 5. Lesson 1, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. The following extract is adapted from A Sherlock Holmes Mystery by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The detective's famous approach that uses logic and deduction comes into play when he tries to solve the crime. I called on my friend Sherlock Holmes on the second morning after Christmas. He was sitting on the sofa in a brown dressing gown, holding a pipe, with a pile of crumpled morning papers at hand. Beside the couch was a wooden chair. On the back of the chair hung a dirty, worn, hard felt hat. A lens and forceps lay upon the seat of the chair. Obviously, Holmes had hung the hat over the chair in order to examine it. Perhaps I interrupt you? I said. Not at all. I am glad to have a friend with whom I can discuss my results, said Sherlock Holmes. The matter is an ordinary one, he continued, but there are some points of interest in it. I seated myself in his armchair and warmed my hands before his crackling fire. Although it looks very ordinary, a deadly story or crime must be linked to it, I guessed. No, no crime, laughed Sherlock Holmes. Let me tell you how the hat came here. It was 4 o'clock on Christmas morning, and Peterson, the commissioner, was walking home. A tallish man carrying a fat goose was walking ahead of him on the road. As he reached the end of the street, a little knot of rough men attacked the man with the goose. One of the hoodlums knocked off the tall man's hat as he aimed a blow at him. The tall man raised his stick to defend himself and swinging it over his head, smashed the shop window behind him. Peterson rushed forward to protect the victim, but the man, frightened by Peterson's uniform, took to his heels. The roughs also ran away as Peterson approached. So Peterson was left with the fat goose and the battered hat that the tall man left behind. Peterson wanted to give the goose back to the owner, but faced quite a problem. Mrs. Henry Baker was printed on a small card that was tied to the goose's left leg. Also, the hat does have the initials HB that have been inscribed on its lining. However, there are thousands of bakers in this city, and many hundreds of those are Henry Bakers. Peterson brought both hat and goose around to me on Christmas morning, as he knows such problems interest me. Okay then children, shall we stop reading the text for time being? Yesterday, I showed you 2 video clippings from 2 films. Today I will show you the continuation of the first movie. The other one you can watch tomorrow. But one thing you need to understand. In your textbook, the full story is not given. It is just a simplified version. Many parts are skipped. But in the movies, you can see many more scenes. So don't get confused, okay? Now just watch and enjoy.
How do you deduce that there is no gas laid on in his house?
1 tallow candle stain. or even 2 might come by chance, but when I see Watson, no less than 5. He never got candle stains from a gas jet, Watson. Are you satisfied?
Well, it's all very ingenious. Mr. Holmes, the goose. The goose, Mr. Holmes.
Well, what of it, man? Has it come back to life and flapped off through the kitchen window?
No, sir, no, sir. But see what the wife found in its crop.
Oh, Joseph Peterson. This is a treasure trove indeed. You know what you've got.
A diamond. Precious stone, but it cuts glass like it was putty.
It is more than a precious stone. It is the precious stone.
The Hotel Cosmopolitan robbery. The blue carbuncle.
The blue carbuncle indeed. It is absolutely unique. Its value can only be conjectured. And your reward, Peterson, of £1,000 is not within a 20th of its market price.
£1,000? Oh, Lord have mercy.
You must admit, Watson, that my deductions in regard to this hat have suddenly assumed a more important aspect.
Yes, point taken, Holmes. Now, the question for us now to solve is to trace the sequence of events from a rifle jewel case at the one end to the crop of a goose at the other. There is the stone. The stone came from the goose. The goose came from Mr. Henry Baker, the gentleman with the shabby hat and all the other characteristics. So now we must set ourselves very seriously to finding this gentleman and to ascertaining what part he had to play in this little mystery.
Found. At the corner of Goodge Street, a goose and a black felt hat. Mr. Henry Baker can have same by applying at 6:30 this evening at 221B Baker Street. Clear and concise.
Yes, very, but will he see it?
Well, I'm sure he will keep an eye on the evening papers. For the poor man, the loss was a heavy one. Oh, Peterson, just nip down to the advertising agency and have this put in all the evening papers.
Which one, sir?
The Globe, Star, Pall Mall, St. James Gazette, Echo, Evening News, Standard, and all the others that may occur to you.
Right away, sir. And the stone?
I shall keep the stone. Thank you, Peterson.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and Peterson, would you pick up a goose on your way back? Give him the money, will you, Watson? We must have something to give Mr. Henry Baker to take the place of the one that your family will very soon be devouring.
Oh, thank you, sir. £1,000? £1,000. £1,000. £1,000. What will you do with the stone?
I shall keep it in my museum.
Well, Horner, her ladyship is not at all pleased with me. You might be under lock and key, but she'd rather her blue carbuncle was.
Never took it, Inspector.
Yes.
What is it?
Well, tell me what you did with it, and I'll put in a good word at your trial. But if you don't...
I've been on the straight for years, ever since I married Jenny.
If you don't, and when the judge hears about your previous conviction, you might never see your pretty wife again. I've got you, Horner, but I need that jewel.
It's a bonny thing. Just see how it glints and sparkles.
Of course, it is a nucleus and focus of crime. Every good stone is. They are the devil's pet baits. In the larger and older jewels, every facet may stand for a bloody deed.
It was found in the banks of the Amoy River in southern China and is remarkable in having every characteristic of the carbuncle, save that it is blue instead of ruby red. This stone is not yet 20 years old.
In spite of its youth, it already has a sinister history. There have been 2 murders vitriol throwing, suicide, and several robberies brought about for the sake of this 40-grain weight of crystallized charcoal.
Who would think that so pretty a toy could be a purveyor to the gallows and the prison?
Come in. Mr. Henry Baker, I believe. Please, draw near the fire. It is a cold night, and I observe that your circulation is more adapted for summer than for winter. Do sit down. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
Mr. Baker. Is that your hat?
Oh, yes. Oh, it is undoubtedly my hat. Thank you, sir. I would have advertised its loss, but shillings have not been so plentiful with me as they once were. I had no doubt that the gang of roughs who assaulted me had carried off both my hat and the bird. I did not care to spend more money in a hopeless attempt at recovering them.
Yes, well, of course, that is very understandable. Oh, by the way, about your bird. We were compelled to eat it.
To eat it?
It would have been a little use to anyone had we not done so. But we have another goose upon the sideboard there, which I presume will answer your purpose equally well. It is about the same weight and perfectly fresh, as you can see.
Oh, yes, most certainly.
Of course, we have kept the feathers, legs, crop, and so on of your own bird, if you so wish.
They might be useful to me as relics of my adventure, but beyond that, I can hardly see what use the disjecta membra of my old acquaintance could possibly be to me. Oh, no, sir, with your permission, I shall confine my attentions to the excellent bird which I perceive upon your sideboard.
I would be interested to know where the other bird came from. You see, I am somewhat of a fowl fancier, and I have seldom seen a better-grown bird. It would be of great interest to me to know precisely how it came into your possession.
It was the club, sir, the Goose Club.
So, the Goose Club? What were the exact circumstances?
I am not a rich man, as you may see, sir, but I make a humble living and a respectable one, if I may say so, in the British Museum.
Studying?
Studying, you might say, and helping others with their studies. I have a certain knowledge of books. That day, sir, I had finished work early and left the museum in the afternoon. I had a little business to attend to before calling in at the Alpha public house. Several of us who work in the museum frequent that establishment, and this year our good host, Mr. Windigate, had instigated a goose club, by which, on consideration of some few pence each week, we were to receive a bird at Christmas.
There we are, Mr. Baker. A very fine bird, as promised.
A magnificent specimen indeed, landlord, eh?
Put you back in a wife's good books, eh?
Yes, well, she is still somewhat irked with me, I'm afraid. However, things will doubtless improve when I am once more in gainful employment.
Of an academic nature, of course.
Well, I have expectations. Now, I owe you one last payment of 8 pennies, eh?
Struck it rich, have we, Mr. Baker?
I chanced upon an acquaintance of sympathetic disposition. That is to say, I sold some of my books.
Ah. Not your books, Mr. Baker.
Needs must, Mr. Windigate, and at this season of the year more than ever, we must not deprive those we love. Or even those to whom we are married. And so, if you will set aside this impressive peace offering, I shall fortify myself for the fray with a large glass of whiskey and a pint of your most excellent beer. Christmas, dear.
Same to you, Mr. Baker. Here we are, my dear. Bless you, sir. Come on. Inside. Come in.
Well, sir, on my way home, I was attacked by the gang of roughs who I believed had stolen the goose. My hat came off in the scuffle, but I remember little of it, save that a uniformed officer appeared on the scene, and we all made off.